in the United States.
Have you deported any any American citizens, including children, been deported during your time in office?
We have children that mothers have chosen to keep with them. So those
by my count, you have 10 American citizens, including children with cancer, who have been deported out of the country. I understand you're saying it's their choice. But it's hard to imagine a small child having a choice. But have you gone after legal immigrants? Again, your standard in your opening statement was the most dangerous illegal immigrants. Does that include PhD students and master students at colleges across the country, unarmed? Are they the most dangerous illegal when they have status and no weapons?
I don't decide who gets status through a student.
10 American citizens were deported. Some of them were children. One had cancer. And when a U.S. senator asked who approved it, the Homeland Security Secretary couldn't give a straight answer. This isn't about immigration anymore. This is about whether your constitutional rights still protect you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here. You know, Michigan's a border state, so we need each other. We have a very big bridge that's being inaugurated, ribbon cut in September. We need that to be fully staffed. We have a lot going on in Michigan as a northern border state, so we need each other. But what I'm concerned about is that you've taken the mandate to close off the border beyond going after, as you say, the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants. I'm a CIA officer. I worked my entire life to protect the homeland. If someone's here illegally, they need to not be here. They've committed a crime by being here. They need to go back to wherever they're from. But my concern is that either through sloppiness or intent, you have gone far beyond going after the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants and gone into legal immigrants who were given the ability to be here, and even American citizens. And when I think about that, you know, there are lots of people in this country, including me, who have families who fled this kind of environment where they have no rights, where they have no due process, where they don't have habeas corpus. So while I'll be the first to say, coming from a state that was won by Trump, that there is a mandate to do something about the border, I think it is absolute dangerous overreach to go beyond that and start picking up American citizens and people who have the legal right to be here, lawful immigrants who have done everything right. So first and foremost, do you acknowledge that your department has made some mistakes, any mistakes, in going after either American citizens or legal immigrants here in the time that you've been in office?
We have not deported any U.S. citizens.
Detained?
Or people get interviewed. If they get interviewed and they go through that process and if we find that they're U.S. citizens or legal immigrants, they stay in the United States.
Have you deported
we have to go through the vetting process.
Have any American citizens, including children, been deported during your time in office?
We have children that mothers have chosen to keep with them. So those
by my count, you have 10 American citizens, including children with cancer, who have been deported out of the country. I understand you're saying it's their choice.
But it's hard to imagine
a small child having a choice. But have you gone after legal immigrants? Again, your standard in your opening statement was the most dangerous illegal immigrants. Does that include PhD students and master students at colleges across the country, unarmed? Are they the most dangerous illegal when they have status and no weapons?
I don't decide who gets status through a student program. This Department of State decides that, and we enforce it.
Oh, come on.
That's what our Department of Homeland Security does.
I just would offer that, again, I have no qualms with going after folks who are here illegally. That is not my concern. That was part of my job, was to prevent people from coming here illegally in a former life. My concern is you're sending a chill down the spine of America by going after people who either have legal status or American citizens. And when my colleagues ask you about habeas corpus, and you say, literally, we can review the tape, that you believe it's a right the president has. You sat here in front of all of us and swore an oath to the Constitution, and that is not at all what habeas corpus is. It is a right that we all get, that American citizens get, that people who are in the United States legally have. So my concern is it's complete overreach. I don't think American citizens, even those who voted for Trump, believe that you should be able to just grab someone off the street, sloppy, who has the legal right to be here, and certainly an American citizen. And I just am concerned that while you say you're going after the most dangerous folks, what you're actually doing is going after folks for political reasons, right? A PhD student that's unarmed
absolutely not
is not
doing
at the
that.
top
And we're
of
not
the list.
deporting U.S. citizens, and we're not deporting
Well, 10
people
of them
who
have
have
been
legal
deported.
status here.
10 American
If
citizens
the children
have been
have gone
deported.
with their parents, it's because their
let me
parents
ask you
wanted
another
them with
question
them.
about cybersecurity. You know, you've cut $500 million from the budget. What specific programs are you cutting? Because there are programs that really aid states and locals that we depend on for cybersecurity. And we know that right now, while we may have good security in the federal government, if you are a local state official, you're depending on the federal government. So have you cut the ISAC program, the program to states and locals on cybersecurity?
The president's recommended budget has a reduction in $491
Does it cut
million.
that program? I've heard the
and what
talking
it's
point.
doing
Does
is putting
it cut the
CISA
program?
back on mission.
And it's
you can't
ensuring
say that
this is the most
cybersecurity is going to be strengthened.
You cannot say it's the most cyber secure administration if you're cutting the program to my state and to your state.
It will
and if you
be
look
when
on record, that's what you've cut. I yield back.
What made this exchange so powerful wasn't the volume, it was the precision. Senator Elissa Slotkin didn't come into this hearing as a political firebrand. She came in as a former CIA officer, a national security professional, and a senator from a state that Donald Trump won. That matters because it immediately stripped away the usual partisan escape routes. She started with something rare in Washington: context. Michigan is a border state, just not the one people usually think about. It shares a massive northern border with Canada. There's a major international bridge about to open. Trade, security, staffing, and coordination all depend on the Department of Homeland Security functioning properly. Her message was clear: we need DHS to succeed. And then she drew the line. Slotkin said something many Americans quietly agree with, but rarely hear said out loud in a balanced way. If someone is in the country illegally, they shouldn't be here. Enforcing the law is not the problem. Border security itself is not the issue. The issue is how power is used once it's granted. Her concern was that DHS, under the banner of targeting the most dangerous illegal immigrants, has expanded that mission far beyond what the public was promised, not just to undocumented migrants, but to people who are legally here, and even to American citizens. That's not a small accusation. That's a constitutional alarm bell. When Slotkin asked whether DHS had made any mistakes, any errors at all in deporting citizens or lawful immigrants, the answer she got was absolute. No mistakes. None. That's when she narrowed the question, because experience and intelligence teaches you something important. When people speak in generalities, it's often because specifics are dangerous. She asked again, slowly, clearly, have any American citizens, including children, been deported during your time in office? This is the moment where everything changed. The response wasn't a denial, it was a reframing. Secretary Noem said that children went with their mothers by choice. Slotkin didn't attack, she didn't grandstand, she simply introduced reality. 10 American citizens were deported. Some of them were children. One had cancer. And then she said the line that made this exchange unforgettable. It's hard to imagine a small child having a choice. That sentence matters because it exposes how bureaucratic language can be used to sanitize human consequences. Calling it a choice suggests agency, but children don't negotiate deportation. They follow their parents. And when the government removes a parent, it is effectively removing the child too, citizenship or not. This is where Slotkin pushed the conversation beyond immigration and into something deeper, the structure of rights. She asked whether DHS considers legal immigrants, like PhD students and graduate students, as part of the most dangerous population, people with legal status, no criminal records, no weapons, no threat profile. The answer deflected responsibility to the State Department, but Slotkin shut that down quickly, because enforcement without accountability is exactly the danger. Then she went even further. She referenced habeas corpus, a core constitutional protection that prevents the government from detaining people without due process. This isn't a technicality. Habeas corpus is older than the United States itself. It exists because history has shown again and again what happens when governments are allowed to seize people first and justify it later. Slotkin reminded the room that habeas corpus is not a presidential privilege. It is a right for American citizens, a right for people legally present in the United States. When that right is treated casually or worse, misunderstood by those in power, it sends a signal, not just to immigrants, but to everyone. Her warning was measured but unmistakable. When enforcement becomes sloppy or politically motivated, the innocent get caught. When there's no accountability for errors, mistakes become policy. And when citizens can be removed from their own country without consequence, the problem is no longer immigration, it's power. Slotkin made another critical point that often gets lost in these debates. Even Americans who voted for tougher border enforcement did not vote for a system where U.S. citizens could be deported. They did not vote for children with cancer to be collateral damage. They did not vote to weaken constitutional protections that apply to everyone. This wasn't about left versus right. It wasn't about open borders versus closed borders. It was about whether the government still recognizes limits. And that's why this moment resonated so deeply, because history shows that rights don't usually disappear all at once. They erode quietly, justified by urgency, fear, and temporary exceptions.
Slotkin wasn't accusing DHS of malicious intent. She was warning about unchecked authority. And that distinction is crucial because democracies don't collapse only when leaders are evil. They collapse when systems stop correcting themselves. If the government can deport a citizen by mistake and face no accountability, the question becomes unsettlingly simple. How many mistakes are acceptable, and who decides when you become one of them? If you value clear-eyed analysis that goes beyond the headlines and explains what these moments actually mean, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who thinks this debate doesn't affect them, because history shows it always does.